Okay, can you hear me? All right, thank you for coming. I know that today many of you probably already go home to celebrate Thanksgiving. That I honestly don't know why we're here, but anyway, we just since we're here, let's try to develop some interesting material that we can actually discuss and think about. Okay, I'm going to talk about two things today. Number one, I'm going to talk a little bit about final project, just to let you know in general what we're doing. I think we make a good progress. I probably already met about 12 or 13 groups, which is cover most of the students from the class. I see that you guys are coming out very interesting idea. So I think that's great. I think you're on the right track. And this idea is, as I mentioned, is different and innovative. So that's the question I'm going to ask you during the final project demo. What is your problem statement? What is your scenario? And what is the difference of innovation about the idea that you have? And how would that be shown in the in your scenario? Okay, so that's kind of, I want to talk just a little bit about the motivation, about what I present to you. That is so this slide shows what's the current status of our work. So we have your let me turn on the light a little bit. They allow me. Okay, I think that's better. So this is essentially what the world we're in right now. It's pretty much a data centric. If you think about that, today is data centric. We have something called cloud, which is gathering the computer. We have a lot of what we call edge device, which is a sensor. This is like a surveillance camera, temperature sensor, moving sensor, facial recognition. And all this is collecting the data from us. And they're doing certain thing which is not really transparent. And the thing is that those data definitely have shown to us that has been abused or misused for a very important, for example, democratic process. So there has been a push about reevaluating the whole thing, including privacy, including transparency, and including how do we actually understand the AI or machine learning algorithm? What's the explanation? Because, okay, you should definitely take a course, looks like machine learning. I think it's ECS 170 or 171, which really talk about what is machine learning in the modern day. By the way, it was not. 30 years ago, when we talked about machine learning, it was more of a blending between statistics and cognitive science. But today, when we talk about machine learning, we're like almost 100%. It's about statistical. So what do I mean by statistical? It means that we are assuming we have the power to extract the information we want from the data that you contribute. We all contribute. Okay, so essentially they derive everything about what we think it should be, not based on some kind of doctrine or principle, but purely based on the data that's actually input. That's kind of a danger. That's why we want to get rid of any kind of bias situation, or some of the situation people make the machine learning very vulnerable to a lot of data. So this is the advanced topic. You should, when you work out the ecs36b, looking ahead, what kind of element that you should really try to learn, and it will help you to see the world of computation a little bit different. Okay, and the thing is that the last part is that, well, if it's from the data, if I want to actually make an ethical decision, I'm actually relying on the system to actually tell me what's right and wrong. That's the recommendation. But the thing is that if we purely rely on the statistical concept, then essentially the ethics that we got exposed to is actually related to the data that being collected. If everybody thinks robbing a department store is okay, if that's the data, I mean, I'm using an extreme example, and the system will think that, okay, that might be okay things to do. So that is a very interesting, I would say, the thing for you to think about the data-centric computing is looking at. Okay, so what I want you to look at, I'm going to skip this coupon example because that was the motivation example. I mean, let me just show you that what is the coupon, the ethical example is that, for example, like a coupon. A coupon is a piece of information that potentially help a person to have a more desire to make a purchase. That is essentially what coupon is doing, and it actually generates economic value for that particular store. But is this ethical to actually issue that coupon? But because in some sense, coupons is like a temptation. It's actually asks you to consume more apple, more ice cream, or more beer. And the thing is that, well, how do we actually be able to handle that to actually be able to make an ethical decision or ethical recommendation? I mean, for example, when I say, if I know somebody who is addicted to alcohol, somebody has already have a vulnerability about alcohol, and then he is actually in front of an aisle of a beer, and then you send him a coupon. Okay, by the way, they're getting there. Okay, decision, very, very real time. It's not like you stay at home, they send you a coupon, drive over there. It's actually when you visit certain place, this is your geographic location is going to be sending you all kind of information that makes sure you actually finish the last step to generate a transaction to help the economic system to be profitable. So the thing is that ethical consideration is that if this person has a vulnerability to that product, then you actually might not want to make that recommendation, even if it's just a 30% discount. So it's interesting for you to think about, but the more interesting is what information element you need to collect in order to make that ethical decision. So that is become the system related to what we're doing. So I just want to tell you one step about what is really, I have been talking to all of you about moving the people into the computing. What I'm really saying is that instead of a cloud sensor and your phone, I'm actually, what I call dual edge computing is that I'm actually cut off that blue line. Essentially, I cut off that blue line. So it means that, that's why I said that device must be internetless. It can collect the data, it can actually perform whatever we're doing, and yet is, for privacy concerns, not being transmit, gather, to actually push the human side, the ownership side to do all the work. Because that actually come out with some very unique property when you develop those ideas in the final project. Okay, so just to let you know that that's the motivation for you to think about. I mean, most of you probably I already met for the past few days. You probably get the idea, but when I draw on the board, this is really what I'm thinking. Okay. Any question? So if you haven't met with me right after this class, we can go back to academic search to have the meeting. Okay. Or next couple of days, if you want, we can do Zoom as well. And just you all have my phone number, right? Okay, my email is pretty much got spammed, so it is harder and harder for me to extract any useful information from there. So yeah, you need, I mean, it will be great if some of you develop a good email system that I will read. I will put the Raspberry Pi here and I will read it. I mean, okay, this is the idea I should actually do is I'm going to actually put a Raspberry Pi in my office, which will collect JSON the email documentation. If you want to contact me, the best way is that just leave an email there, just like a traditional, almost like a mailbox, put it there, but it's physically located in somewhere in the campus. Okay. Let me do this. Now I'm actually going to talk homework 7, which I didn't finish on Monday afternoon. And then I will show you the code, the various pieces of code that's actually going to do that. So conceptually, this is homework. This is homework. This is homework 7. It's a search engine, but it's also a social media system. It's actually combined these two together. Essentially, we have a server which will allow us to, the first operation is called update. Update means that you actually have a post. It's a JSON. So you want to push it into the server side on the right. So essentially, you view server as a place which you have a bunch of posts and with keywords, and those keywords can be used to derive whether when you do search, I know when you type in certain keyword, then what kind of post I'm going to send back to you. So there are only 2 operations. One is the update. One is the search. There's just 2 RPC function that you can call. Okay, so let me see if I have an RPC specification here. Yeah, I do have this RPC, but this one is a little bit different. I have the other one called validate. I have an update. You can see that, and you have the search. That's easy. Validate is essentially after you send, you update, you want to validate whether that particular post has been successfully entered the search database. That's why you have a validate. Okay. So there's a 3 function, but for your homework 7, you don't worry about validate. Just worry about update and the search. There's 2. So this 2, very simple, but it gives you enough for you to be able to essentially build up your search history. You essentially update is collecting the information, and search is for you to retrieve the information. And together with homework assignment number 6, which you develop, produce, and merge. So you can think about what's happening is that you can think about now this is not just a search engine, but it's a social media system. Because when you have a post, when you want to make a contribution to a news article on the search side, and you just search for an article, and then you download that article using search, that means you actually got the article, it's a JSON. And then what you do is you start adding comments. You're adding comments, you're adding reaction. So now that particular search becomes a bigger one, because now this JSON you have, I'm talking about on the client side, you actually have the original article, but then adding to your new element into that. And what is that? That's called merge. Remember on Monday I talked about you can actually just generate using JDOM, and JDOM will do a merge function, which will merge 2 elements. The new increment information about that will be there as well. So then what you do is that after you, oh, I'm sorry, I need to go back. So after you actually merge your new update on the client side, then you do update again. When you do update, now the server is going to receive a new copy. So server has a new copy, has an existing copy. Guess what? The server is going to do merge again. The server is going to merge again with the new update, because between the time there will be other user also upload their reaction and their update. and you're actually merging them into a gigantic JSON. And then for the next user who is going to interested in this article, when they search, they will get the combined effort for all the reaction, all the new comment that go into that. So essentially, this is the basic element. In fact, you think about what a search engine or a social media interaction, what they're really doing is just like this 4 or 5 function. That's enough for you to actually build the whole thing. I'm kind of simplifying, but if you think about the operation, it's really just update, search, and merge. That's pretty much everything we're talking about. Okay, so that's the high-level concept. Before I go into the code itself, the reference implementation, any question? Okay, I guess I'm perfectly clear. No, I know I'm not, right? So let me look at the code. Okay, I'm just trying to compile the program. So I'm going to create 2 windows. Let me check my, make sure I didn't change it back. Do search.cpp. Yeah, I'm actually setting up for, so here you can see my client is actually setting up for 55407 as my search engine. So the port number I'm using is a 55407. I don't know why I did that. Let me check my server. Sorry. Just want to make sure they're here. What is my port number? Where's that? Yeah, 5547. Okay, good. So when I did my search, I actually have 2 directory. One is my client directory, which has the search clause. I'm going to remove all the things I have. I'm going to remove those. Okay, I'll actually keep it here because I can do a little bit. Okay, but I'm going to open another window. This window. Go to my server. So this is my server with a bunch of posts here. Okay, I have 2 posts here. Let me get rid of the posts from the client so I can do it from the beginning. Let me remove, let me make directory keep. Move post star to keep. Okay, so when I started, I really just have this this search clause.json, which is contain the keyword Kira, assuming Kira is the keyword that I want to search for. Okay, so now I can start running my server. My server here, I would just say HW6 server. I believe that's the keyword. Okay, so I'm actually just turn on my server, just like pretty much like your HW3 server, but instead this server is handling let me show you the JSON looks like. The JSON is star.json. What's this? This is okay, ecs36b homework 6 JSON. So the JSON I have in this is just this two functions. One is update, one is search. All right, there's two functions. You can see that they only take one parameter. It's a post. It's always a post that is a parameter, and it will get back whatever is it get back. Okay. So now I have my search engine running already. So now I can start doing search. So I can do /HW6 search. If I do this, it's not going to give me anything because I need to include the parameter about the JSON I'm trying to search for. So I have to say search class here. So you can see that when I'm doing search, it generates a lot of messages because I was doing debugging, so it was checking. But the result of the result is actually going to be in search result. Sorry. Oh, actually, I got it. I got two of the posts. Let me do it again. I think did I remove it already? Okay, right now I don't have anything, but I do a search. After that, I'm actually getting these two posts. So essentially, there are two posts that both contain the keyword Kira. So let's actually look at these two posts to say where excuse me. Sorry. Where do I get the Kira keyword? So let's look at the first one. Now, I don't want to use Emac. I just do more. Okay, so this is the representation is actually in the style string format of the JSON. Get it back. So you can see that the result is you have from just the post you already know, you have ID, but then there is a new element that's actually we introduced for homework 7 is the key. Is the key is a bunch of keywords that this particular post will associate it with. So you can see that we have a bunch of key. I actually forgot what the meaning of those keys. It must be from one of the students who actually, this is actually from one of the students' homework. And it has AMG, GTR, Kira, LAMG. You could have duplicate, but we only have a bunch of keys that's actually going to match. Okay, so that is basically why when I search for Kira, that this post is actually sending to me. And then the rest of the post, just like your homework assignment number 5. It's very simple. Let's actually check the second one, the second post. The second post, again, it's like this, but it only have a one keyword, Kira. Okay, it doesn't have any other keyword, it has Kira, and then it has a message, something like that. And it could be more complicated. Let me see if I can find a more complicated example. ecs36b, homework 9. This is only if you want to do like a Christmas gift, you can work on homework assignment number 5. CD server. You can see that when we really run, there's a 1/4 when I think it's also for Thanksgiving. And the students are actually doing update and search. You can see that I actually keep all the log for all the work with student do search and student do update to the master server, because we actually create a master server, really allow us to communicate, to use it in the real way. And then if you go to the posts, you can see that there is a lots of real life posts that generate by previous. Oh, this is actually not Christmas. This is in like a June 2020. That some of the posts could be really big. Let me actually select a post which is a little bit bigger. This one seems to be big. Let me check what it was. So this is a post which looks like it's by one of the student, Nini Rita, and you can see that it has a lots of other students actually participate. The different student that they use their VSID to participate in this post, and basically is actually talk about a post about final exam that they have over there. Okay, so let's just show you a realistic situation. Let me just show you a little bit about the log. I remember the amount of logs. Just think about how much we actually produce as a class. For example, the first, where's my mouse? The first server update log, which is have how many megabyte? 220 megabyte. But then it blow up. So I actually keep every few days, I actually change the log. So now we have about totally maybe 400 megabytes of log just for the update. And then we have a log for search as well. Okay, so this things could be useful, could be realistic, just to let you know. All right, so now we know the server is running here. We actually have the client is doing the search. So let's now do an update. If we do a search, let's do an update as well. So for update, I have to kill it because what I want to do, I want to go to the server side. My server, is that right? Where am I? Yeah, I want to go to the server side. Oh, here, this is the server. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, if you see that I have the posts, I have 2 posts only. So I'm going to move those 2 posts, make directory keep. So I'm going to move posts, post whatever star to keep. Okay, so now you can see that I have nothing in the post. So I have nothing in the post. So now I can do a search again. Let's do a search again. I'm here. I have this 2 posts. I keep it there. But if I do a search, there's nothing. Oh, because I haven't started the server. Sorry. So I start the server and I run this. I run the search. It says 0 because there's no post that match the keyword key run that on the server side. So what should I do? Now I can do a update. So what I did update is this / homework 6 update. And then I put the first one. Let's put the first one first. 96, 32, 7. Okay, that's the first one. So actually I'm updating this over there. So now you can actually go to the server. You see that, okay, now I have a, let me actually use my second window. Let me just change my directory over here. Go to the server, and now you see the posts. Now that particular update has been put in here in the post repository. So essentially, after you do the update, now I get the post. So this is just 2 functions. One is trying to search, whether it's on the server side. The other one is just update. Okay. So this is essentially the simple scenario you should worry about for your homework assignment number 7. All right. Any question before we go into the code to see variety pieces on this? Okay, so I'm going to show you the code now. Let's show you the client side. The client side is actually fairly simple. Let's look at the server, the search. The search is I think I gave you in the reference implementation some part of the code. So you're not completely in the dark to write everything from scratch. So what search is that, of course, the argv1 represent the search clause. So essentially, I actually have a program which will give it to you. It's called MyFileToJson. Okay, this piece of code will be given to you, and let's actually check what is MyFileToJson. Grab MyFileToJson. Okay, this is actually in the program called JSON post s2020.cpp. Wait a minute, let me check my makefile. I want to make sure I actually have that. Yeah, I think I put it in post.cpp eventually. That was the old one, but the new code is actually in post.cpp. I put it in post.cpp, a bunch of utilities that's actually included in the reference implementation. And one of them is what you call MyFileToJson, or MyFileToString, MyFileToJson. Okay, take a look at this piece of code. You actually realize that this code is kind of familiar to you. What I did here, the input of a MyFileToJson is a file name that you want to open, and it returns a JSON value, which is the JSON value pointer. JV pointer is pointing to a JSON object. So essentially take input as a JSON from the file and put that into a JSON object. So you can see that this actually is very useful. We use it a lot because we're going to do file to JSON world that do this conversion back and forth. And we have this, I mean, this is code, is just open the file, and then you see I'm actually using this code. If you actually look at your reference implementation earlier, that's the code I showed you on Monday about how do you actually open the file using fseek, using fread, and then close it. You actually grab the file into your program. And the following part is also very simple, is I call another function called myParseJSON. So you just read it in, and I call myParseJSON. And let's take a look. Where is myParseJSON? Here is myParseJSON. Now you take a look at the code. This is myParseJSON. Does this sound really familiar to all of you? You are not familiar with this piece of code? I will check whether you really do homework 3 yourself. Okay? This is essentially what the code in the homework 3. So essentially, you will see that when you develop homework 3, have you noticed that you have to repeat this piece of code in a lot of places? Anytime you want to convert a string to a JSON value, a JSON object, you essentially use this piece of code. So that's why this is part of the object-oriented programming. We kind of gradually converge from homework 3 to homework 7. You can start seeing that a lot of this kind of pattern about the design, about the programming, you can reuse the code. By the way, this quarter, reusing the code is great. That when you do your final project, reusability is a key for you to quickly be able to develop that. A mature programmer will do very little programming from the scratch, but they will be able to very quickly put something that's actually usable in very short amount of time. So this function is called myParseJSON. And so now let's go back to the file called MyFileToJSON. So this is MyFileToString. So this code is MyFileToJSON. Essentially, is doing all the file I/O. This piece of code, by the way, if you take a look, it also shows a lot. I mean, that's basically our habit, because we write a piece of code or use this piece of code again and again, then we basically put it in like a library function, and we just use it when we call it. So essentially, it's doing this file IO. At the end, I'm just doing my parse JSON. So I should get it back about a JSON value from this code. Okay, so that's actually my file to JSON. And obviously, you need the other way as well. If you need file to JSON, you need JSON to file. And this is another function that's actually we use a lot. It's go the other way. Is basically take a JSON, JSON to file is take the file name, take the JSON object pointer. It's the same thing, except it's the other order. So how do I do the other order? You see that I actually use two style string to get this character JSON str. And then instead of fread, I'm actually using fwrite. Fread and fwrite are the two functions that you learn from my break and my heal. Essentially, it's the same thing. It's going back and forth. Okay, using these two functions, and then you're done with your my heal. And the other thing which I want to tell you that it's a utility function. There is a four major utility function. The other utility function is my file to string. So my file to string is essentially try to read the whole thing in. And then it just return as a string pointer. Okay, just allocate the memory. This is not used as often as the other two, but just want to tell you that we put a bunch of facility inside post.cpp in the reference implementation that you can use to. It's easier for you to build the search engine. Okay. So now let's go back to my original. The reason I was talking about HW6 Search.cpp. So now you actually see what I'm doing. The first thing is I'm actually doing my file to JSON. Basically, I'm actually parsing the search clause. So I know after I've done that, I will have a keyword available to me. And then you can see what I did is that the keywords, I extract the keyword, and I essentially just send the keyword as a JSON, and then I just call my client.search. That's the what I call the JSON RPC function, my client.search, and I just call it. Okay, assuming my call is successful, then I'm getting the result JSON. Result JSON is the search result I got it from. And now the difficult part, the most difficult part about search is how do you actually extract each of the posts, because you have multiple posts. You need to extract that from the search. So here is the search. You see that I'm actually processing the result. This part of the code is a little bit extended, but I'm actually showing you the example here. Essentially what you're doing is you go through the array, because result JSON is array. I mean, when you work on homework 5, you know, remember data is the array. Then you basically index through each of the element of the data of the I. And for each of that, you actually try to, okay, the first thing you do is, remember we have that post, which whatever post ID, which is the profile ID plus the post ID. And I have to construct the name so I can save it. So this part of the code, I'm actually trying to construct that name, post %s, which is I extract the ID field of the post. Then I'm trying to save it to that. And then after I do this, after I do that, look at the magic. This is homework assignment number 6. I actually create an empty post object. And then what I did, I do JDump. So you open the file you're going to write into, and you actually already got the post. So you do a JDump into that. And then you actually, now you actually have the JSON object after you do the JDump. By the way, this JDump could be a merge as well, just to let you know. And then what you do is that you just do my JSON to file. So that file name, let me tell you that what is the file name buffer. This is the file name. This file name is where you actually just created. You see here, you actually sprintf with the post JSON, and then you open the file. Where do I open the file? I must open the file somewhere. Oh, sorry. The file is open inside my JSON2 file. So the file open part is already included in the my JSON2 file. So sorry, you won't see it there. It's actually post.cpp. It has that. So the search engine, you can take a look that part because we use a lot of code reuse. We develop code from JDOM. We develop the code from my JSON2 file. Those two function together, it will allow you to build a loop, go into the result one by one, then you can basically just dump it and then save it to the file. Okay, so that is a search. Any question? Okay, I'm not going to tell you the HW3 update. It's actually simpler than this one. Let me actually just show you very quickly about what is HW6 update. Okay, the update is essentially the same thing. Okay, I'm going to skip all this. Oh, the code actually, I think I provide this piece of code to you because I include all the instruction about how each of the function is really about. Okay, so let's actually take a look at my update. So essentially, argument one is the JSON you try to update. So the first thing I do is I do my file to JSON. So I take that and then convert it to a JSON pointer, which is the JV. Now JV is the JSON object I try to upload. And then again, I actually create a post. And again, I do JDump. I actually dump it into my cord. And then here I do all the JSON RPC stuff. You can see that you should be familiar with this HTTP client and a bunch of things. And then this is the function. I just call my client.update. I just basically take that using dumpj from whatever I want to go over there. Okay, so the reason I do JDump and dumpj is that if this is the new update, then that's fine. But if this is not a new update, this is a merge with something else, then you need to use JDump and dumpj. And JDump will automatically do the merge for you. That's why let me just tell you, three functions really is I'm calling my file to JSON to actually bring the new file in. And then I call JDump to actually dump it into my C++ copy. And then after that, I'm actually call the remote RPC using the result of dumpj. So I dumpj, and then I actually do it here. My post, you see that my post pointer dumpj, and then send it to the update. And then this update was sent to the server. Okay, I have 4 minutes, so I want to go through the HW6, the search, the server part. Okay, here's a server. I think I gave you most part of the server, by the way, so you should have that as well. I will let's look for update first. Okay, you can see that this should be very similar to your homework assignment number 3, except I now change to homework assignment number 6, and I have 2 functions. One is update, one is search. Let's actually look at the okay, I'm actually not going to tell you what is the check time interval, but I want to tell you a little bit story. The second time, not the first time, the second time when the student are using the search engine, I gave them a challenge. By the way, they don't have final, they have a smaller final project than yours, but I gave them a different challenge for their final exam, is that they try to break my server. So the way they break the server, they use all kind of clever way to actually trigger the segmentation fault for the HW6 server. So the result of the server today is actually a pretty rigorous process from that situation. So one of the students did this. It actually almost, we call it denial of service attack. And he sent the update and the search like every single second or maybe multiple times a server. He essentially write a program to just keep generating requests to the server and such that the server quickly exhausted my memory. And essentially, you cannot handle it. Eventually, the memory run out and then it died. So he got, I think I gave him an A+ actually for doing that. So I have to write this piece of code called check time interval. Means that whenever I receive a request as a server, the first thing I check is when was the last time this particular IP address or whatever server actually sent in. If you actually update the same thing too often, I'm actually going to drop that immediately. So that's how I actually stop his attack. So that was an interesting experiment, just to let you know that why some of the function is there. Okay, so let's look at update. So this is just like, so now this update have only one argument, that's the update JSON, right? I mean, both this function update and search, they only have a one argument. So what I did here, oh, by the way, I have another piece of code, which is called myPrintLog, which is printing, because I want to log everything. So I have this function called myPrintLog. I can actually print it there. So, okay, don't worry about check big ID. That's another attack I received. So I have to, I mean, just tell you that what happened is that there's a student, remember you have a VSID. Your VSID is probably 30 or 40 digits or character. And he submitted the ID, which is like a 2 million characters. You create a JSON and then you put the ID field, which that ID field is 2 million character. And they actually quickly exhausted the memory. It's all about how robust the server is. So I actually put that code there to check whether somebody actually tried to do that to include an ID that's actually just too big for, not for my code, for the JSON library. By the way, a lot of attack is not attack to my code. A lot of attack is actually attack the JSON CPP library. So just tell you that JSON CPP library we have used a lot, but it didn't handle all this thing like this. If somebody actually created a string in JSON value, that's actually just way too big. The JSON CPP library will crash because of that. Okay, so that's why I have to actually check the big ID. If somebody doing the big ID, I have to drop it for some reason. Okay, so you see I use a lot of exception. I use a lot of exception with different RC, so I know what kind of exception I have. All right, so then I do my parse JSON. Remember, that's the function that's included in post.cpp. You take that JSON, you actually parse it. So now I have a nice JSON object from the string. And then what I did, you don't worry about check interval. You don't worry about suspicious. You can see that I'm actually doing a lot of, I still leave the code there because that was the process when we try to when the student tried to break the server. Okay, so this is ID regular processing part, but I want to go over here. And then you can see that there is, for one of the server, I use a map that I talk about on Monday. No, last week probably. But here is what's going to happen is that, let me show you the function. I actually do, this part, I actually first find out using post map to find out where is the post, to find out that post. And then what I did is I did a JDump. Remember my v message? Where's my v message? My v message was from this process. Sorry, I tried to look for, where's my v message generated? Where's my parse JSON? Here. You see here, this is my parse JSON. I'm actually getting the update JSON into my v message. So update JSON is a string. I convert it to a JSON object, my v message. And at this moment for update, I just do after I did the post map, I just do post pointer JDOM into that. Because remember, JDOM has the merge capability. So this one will merge to whatever the existing post with the new post you try to go in. Okay, so that's why merge is very important, because if you don't do the merge correctly, then your search result, this kind of update will happen very smoothly. Okay, let me give you 30 seconds. I'm sorry, I'm already a few minutes late. I want to show you the search part. This is the update part. I want to show you the search part. Is this the search part? No, this is not the search part. Yeah, here's the search part. So search part is similar. You have a search clause, like a keyword. The case keyword is equal to keyword. And I basically do this. I do a myParseJSON. That's the function I use all the time. I parse that. But then what I extract is the keyword. I try to see if the keyword is null. If it's not null, then I'm actually going to get it out. So at this point, I actually already have the keywords that's available to me. And once I have the keyword, this part I'm just checking, make sure the keyword is actually well formed. By the way, some of the students, when they use this, they actually put in the keyword, they put in some kind of random character. The random character that will crash the JSON-CPP library. I mean, can you believe that? You actually put the JSON, you actually put a lot of crap. I don't know how they actually generate those characters, but those characters are not between the range of a regular character, and they actually crash the JSON. Some kind of Unicode, the JSON-CPP library just don't feel happy about that. So that's why I have to check for that. We have to check for that in order to make sure. But you don't have to worry about that part. That was whole development back there. But anyway, we actually eventually get to this point. We still have to check the post ID kind of thing. And I actually do a MyFileToJSON. So essentially I open the file that's actually match the keyword. And then I actually start to bring them into here. And then you can see I have a loop. Where's my loop? Sorry about that. I'm kind of rushed here. Where's my loop? Oh, here. You see that here is a JSON data. I start to put the loop here. At the end, I do, this is just like a pushback kind of thing, but it's a result JSON data is that array called JSON data. And then the count, I basically prepare an array of JSON. And at the end, I just return this, the whole thing to the search. So it's a little bit tedious, but it basically just follows the concept I mentioned earlier by the code. I would say this code is probably more complicated than you needed, because some of this code is just put it there. So the reference implementation, I strip out all the code that's actually have all the element, all the check, okay? All right, I better stop here because there is another professor after me who also don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Okay, all right, any question? All right, so I'll walk back to academic search, and then we can actually